Welcome to Effective Virtual Meetings. My name is Gwynn Cadwallader and I work in training and organizational development. I have a passion for efficient processes and good communication, which is why I really like the idea of effective virtual meetings and some of the strategies that we're going to share with you today. I also have here with me today my colleague Dianne.
Hi, my name's Dianne Matheis, and I'm very excited to be here today. I have a background in K-12 educational technology, HR, and LMS administration, and I look forward to showing you more about a Microsoft Planner.
Awesome, thank you, Dianne. So we'll not be doing a deep dive into Planner today with this session, but rather talking about effective meeting structures and how Planner can be used for these meetings. The principles for good meetings apply regardless of whether you're working remotely or in the office, and even whether or not you're using Planner. We just happen to like Planner. So in our session today, we're going to talk about what is a stand-up meeting. This is one of my favorite strategies. And then we'll talk about how to use Planner for those stand-up meetings and also how to use Planner to set up agendas for your regular meetings. And then Dianne will take us through some tips and tricks for using Microsoft Planner. So what is a stand-up meeting? So a team stand-up meeting is a regular, which can be daily or weekly, meeting that is kept between 5 and 15 minutes long. These are meant to be short meetings. And it takes place with all the participants standing, which reminds us to keep the meeting short and to the point. So yes, really, everyone stands up. I personally find these to be pretty energizing and motivating meetings. So why is it important to do this kind of a meeting? Well, first, it encourages positive team building. When we engage regularly with our colleagues, it is easier to psychologically identify with the group. A stand-up meeting is a fast and productive way to keep the team cohesive. Second, it builds and improves collaboration. These stand-up meetings are meant to promote follow-up conversations between members of the team. For example, if one team member brings up an issue they're having, another colleague is encouraged to speak up or stop by or have a conversation, do a quick call with them later in the day to help them work through the issues that they're having. It's a way that we can really share knowledge. And that's really number 3, is these stand-up meetings help us capture valuable knowledge. So regular stand-up meetings will result in an increased rate of knowledge transfer between employees, meaning that the team overall has a wider and better understanding of the projects and the tasks at hand and how we're moving forward through these tasks. The fourth is really, I think, my favorite, is this idea that we can reduce the roadblocks and problems with the work. And sometimes I call this reducing our barriers. So effective stand-up meetings will allow employees to identify issues before they become too problematic. So it puts us in the problem-solving mode much quicker. Team members, again, can help each other when you encounter a problem. Someone may have already figured out a better way to do that, and by sharing this knowledge in the group, again, we really start to have a better collective knowledge. When team members are not comfortable sharing projects and they don't help us, we will see the team become, or help each other, we will see the team become ineffective. The last thing that is really a benefit of stand-up meetings is this idea of improving our understanding of our shared goals. It's easy for people to get siloed, particularly in a remote environment. And when everyone is focusing and discussing their current goals, whether they're individual or team goals, the stand-up meeting provides this common understanding of the group's goals. If there are no shared goals or shared projects or tasks, your team is really just a group of individuals, not a team. So effective teams in all industries around the world use this agile practice of stand-up meetings. So how do I go about doing a stand-up meeting? First, you start with the 3 questions. It's not meant to be a laundry list of what everyone is doing, just a very focused conversation. So the 3 standard questions are, what did you accomplish since our last meeting? What are you working on until the next meeting? and what is getting in your way or keeping you from doing your job, as in what are the barriers. Now, during this time, our work is a little busier and there's a lot going on. So you could move to a simpler format for your stand-up meeting and just ask for what is one thing that you've accomplished since the last time we met. And what is one thing that you might do in your next week or time period? And then it could be a great idea to share some best practices for our current situation. And always check in on whether or not there's any new work. So a question people often ask me is, how often should you meet? And this really depends upon the work in your area. So what is the cadence that would help your group? So for example, if you're software developers, you tend to meet every day. The cadence of that work is very quickly. People need to keep each other updated, talk about different ways that they're doing their code, etc. For our group, as designers of courses, the cadence of our work is not that fast. So meeting weekly is a much better option for us because it gives us more time to move our projects forward. As a team, you'll try this out and you'll figure out what is the best for you. If you move to monthly, it's probably not going to be enough to really help you become a cohesive team and really understand all of the things that people have going on. That might be too long. The other thing that people ask is, what really should the conversation be about in these meetings? And so I try to go back to the purpose. And the purpose of these meetings is a very brief whole team update. What is the work that's happening across the whole team? So as people do their updates, if they look at it through that lens, they would share things where they are working collaboratively or larger projects that might affect other people on the team. It's not just the little tasks that you're ticking off every day, right? So when you start this, you probably won't get it perfect the first time. So just stick with it, work together, and you'll evolve a format that really works for your group. So in these meetings, each person has 1 minute, period, no more, right? So you're going to use a timer to hold each other accountable. It can be really helpful if you're doing these in person to go round robin, or some groups use a funny prop like a little fake chicken or a funny ball or emoji or something. And in the virtual setting, it's helpful to have whoever is leading the meeting actually call people out, because it's a little bit harder to know whose turn it is in a virtual setting. But it's really important to hold people accountable. No devices are allowed in the meeting except for the person who is using the phone to time. And remember, if team members have shorter updates, so if I can do my update in 30 seconds, not a minute, it's not important to fill the whole time. It's really amazing to me how quickly I see people become adjusted to being brief and to the point. So following each team member's update, the lead would want to talk about who could help with any of the barriers. So if people need help, you can assign someone, or people usually volunteer to help with that task right then. Same thing with new work. So if there's new work coming in that's not assigned to anyone, you can have that conversation and say, you know, does anybody feel like they have capacity to do this? This one has a tight deadline. This one has a further out deadline. And people can either put their names by it, or we'll show you how to add your name in Planner, or how your name could be added to Planner in just a minute. And you can add your updates to Planner in the moment if you decide to go that route. So a few bad habits is, first and foremost, waiting around for people. So this is about accountability. So the expectation is that people will be on time. They will show up and be ready to have the meeting. It's very short. The other thing is to be unprepared. So prior to the meeting, all team members, if you're using the stand-up board, should have put their items on the board, the 3 things that they're going to discuss. Or they should have updated Planner prior to the meeting. The third bad habit, and this is really tempting for people, is to let people ramble on. Sometimes we let people go on because we're empathetic or we're trying to be kind, but really we need to hold them accountable so that they can learn how to do their updates in the amount of time that we're giving them. One of the strategies that I use is to actually set my phone to beep so that you don't have to be the person that tells them to stop. So as soon as the phone beeps, everyone knows that their time is up, whether they're finished or not, and they just stop. So the fourth bad habit is to introduce new ideas in your stand-up meeting. So just remember that this is not the right format for discussions around new ideas, which leads me right into the fourth bad habit. So people tend to like these meetings. They're highly energetic. It's a great way to connect, but they're short, to the point, and brief. So it's tempting for teams to say, we're only going to do stand-up meetings. And that's always a mistake. So you need regular meeting formats for things like deeper discussions, those new ideas, or any time where the team needs to come to consensus or do some brainstorming. You would want to go back to a regular standard meeting. You still want to have an agenda, but a stand-up meeting would not be the appropriate way to have those discussions. So as you start your stand-up meetings in a virtual space or even in a physical space, I think you will find the integration of Microsoft Planner and Microsoft Teams to be very helpful. Teams is a great platform for collaboration, communication, ways to connect with your colleagues, and an awesome way to organize your work. And Planner can really help with that. So I personally like to use Planner inside Microsoft Teams, since the idea behind Teams is a place to bring all of the work together. It can be put in a tab within a channel. And if you're new to Teams, this idea of a channel is really a subfolder for your group, right? Planner is also its own application. It can be used on the web. Dianne is going to touch on that in a minute. And you can go to office.com and look at other apps that are available. Now, we're not going to go in depth on how to create a planner in this session today. Just know that there are tons of resources, videos on the web. Our LinkedIn Learning has a ton of resources. So getting those, how to get started, the training is pretty commonly available. The big benefit of using Planner in Teams is that all team members easily can view not only their own tasks and deadlines, but they can see the work for the team as a whole. Now, this is a picture of what an in-person stand-up board looks like. And when we meet in person, we do use a stand-up board. And in this example, each team member has written their tasks on sticky notes. You can use colors to coordinate these kind of things, and they're all put up on the board prior to that. You typically leave them up on the board, and then you move them into different categories as the work progresses. And in the virtual environment, we essentially use Planner in very much the same way. So let's take a look at an example. So it is important, and I mentioned this before, it is important that all team members review their tasks and projects and update either the board or the planner prior to meeting, right? It'll help the meeting be much more effective. So let me explain a little bit what you're looking at in case you are new to Planner. So each column, you can see we have 3 in this example: not started, progress, and completed. Each column has cards in it, and I've highlighted in green one of the cards. And these cards are ways to organize the tasks or projects, and there's a lot of different ways that you could think about this work. But some helpful features are to, I've highlighted another one, to give the task a very specific name. So because this is a communication tool, you want to name the tasks in ways that anyone on the team could understand what it is that you're talking about. The second feature that I'm highlighting in this second card is the use of the checklist. So sometimes I like to roll my tasks up into groups, and so I'll put a big header on it, but then I have lots of little tasks that I want to keep track of, and so I list them and have them show up on the card, and then I can click those off as I complete them until all of the tasks are done. You can see the little circles with our initials on them. CA is me and MD is Dianne. And those means that means that those cards are assigned to us. So you can also use the labels. So here in this example, we use the labels for months. And I'll show you in a minute how that can help you with either your grouping or searching. It just adds a little bit more information. And you can set the cards for priority. So the bell means this is really urgent. So these, again, are things that you can filter for later that can help you assess what the status of the work is for your team as a whole. So the last thing I want to point out is anywhere within Teams or Planner, if you see the 3 dots, or you could call them an ellipses, that's going to give you more menus and more features. So on the left panel of Teams, if you click those 3 dots, you can actually open a planner that is personal to you and pin it to the sidebar. And then that gives you, you can see at the top that these are all just my tasks, right? They're all things that I've been assigned to. So I can see my tasks regardless of how many teams I'm in. I can see everything that is happening for me. So I find this view pretty helpful. So to hold your stand-up meeting in a virtual environment, you can use Zoom or you could use Teams. I personally like to do the calls inside Teams because I have so many Zoom meetings, but I also really like Teams. So if you do your meeting inside Teams, you can actually you can do a video call right inside the channel where your planner lives, or you can do a call within a group chat. One of the things to remember is that if you're doing a call inside of Teams, you can still navigate around. So you can start the call and then you can open your planner and look at the cards while you're listening. So once everyone has done their 3-minute questions and everyone has shared, then the team lead will ask who can help and who can have tasks. So with Planner open, you can quickly add your name to the task. So if I can help Dianne with one of her tasks, I can just click on the card and add my name, and then she knows that I'm her helper. What I really like about this is that you're organizing the work on the fly. Everybody can see it happening in real time, and you leave your meeting with no one having tasks to do to continue to organize the work. As you start to close your stand-up meeting, one of the questions that I like to ask is there anything else for the good of the group? And if the answer is yes, one thing to consider is this the right meeting for it, right? Is this the right place? And if the answer is no, you just close the meeting. And so you leave, your planner is up to date, everyone is on the same page until the next meeting. Just a little tip, as you go to start your next meeting, you may find that it could be helpful to copy the cards. So you go back to the little ellipses on a card and you get this nice little drop-down menu, and then you can select copy a task. And you have some choices there on what all you want to copy with the task. It's pretty self-explanatory. So for a manager, there's some great ways to start to manage the work. Key is reviewing the planner or the board prior to the meeting. So you're thinking about how is the work moving forward in my area? What are the workload balances? How are we thinking about the work? Do we want more project, more task-based? So these are things that you're going to think about as a manager or discuss with your team. So using Planner is all about accountability. And so this is an example of how we do it, or one of the ways that we do it in our area. So our buckets are organized by work we have on deck, which means it's kind of like on my desk and I'm getting ready to work on it. In progress, so these are things that I'm starting and I'm working on. A lot of our work goes out for review, so that's our third bucket or column. We move it there when we're waiting for feedback, and then we have sort of a done bucket. So this way we can all see everything that we're working on. We can see when the tasks are late because all of the information is there on the card. And remember, cards can be assigned to multiple people. If you decide to use the checklist on a card, you can also put people's names after that. And if Diane and I are both on the same card and I finish some of my tasks, but I have questions for her, there's a place where I can write some notes and they become date stamped. And Diane is going to show you an example of that in just a minute. You'll notice in this example that we have overdue tasks. So as a leader or manager, you would have to decide what to do about that. And the question you would ask yourself is this person with the overdue tasks overloaded? Are they focused on less important tasks? And you can make some choices about whether other people need to be assigned or that person maybe needs to focus on the things that are really urgent. This kind of visibility really promotes teamwork because it allows everyone to support each other and see when other team members might need help. Another feature that I think managers or non-managers will find really helpful is this ability to filter. So when you filter, you're eliminating information. So you're drilling down into just show me the projects that are late, or just show me the projects that have high priority, or just show me the projects that have the label for June. I want to see where we are with our work in June. So these can be really helpful in thinking about where you might need to reassign work or who might be available to take on work that has just come in. Even better for me, this is my personal preference, the filter eliminates information. And while I do find that helpful, one of the other features that I really like is this idea to group by bucket. So if I'm grouping by bucket, I could either group by people that it's assigned to, so I could see all of the things in my bucket. Or if I have set up my labels to be by month, say, I can look at all the projects that have deadlines in June just by grouping by the labels. And rather than eliminating work, it just shows me all of the work that I have or all of the work that the team has, just organized in different ways. So that can be helpful as well. A great tool is the charts that they have. So you can look at a graphical form of how the work is progressing in your area. So you can see all of the late tasks are tagged in red. You can hover over them and get a sense of what they are, how many there are. Just keep in mind if you'd applied any filters, the filters would apply to these charts as well. So it's a super intuitive tool. I encourage you to just get in and poke around and play with it. It's pretty easy to figure out. So I want to pivot and talk a little bit about how to use Planner now for regular meetings with agendas. So I like this as a way to keep your meetings organized, especially meetings that happen on a regular cadence. So for meeting agendas, you would use a separate card for each agenda item. And you would assign the card to the person who's going to be responsible for that item in the meeting. And then you can also set the date. So it'll be the date for whatever meeting you pick. You can add notes to the card following the meeting. And you can also set up your planner to have a to-do bucket, which would look something like this. So this is for a leadership meeting in HR, and you can see we have May and June as our buckets. So some best practices when using this as a tool is to, in the title, talk about which area is doing the discussion. So for us, it was training on the card that I'm highlighting here. But it's also a really great idea to talk about what is the goal? Like, why do we even have this item in our meeting? So for this item, the goal is to make a decision. In others, it could be to brainstorm, right? But if you put the goal right on there, everyone knows, okay, we're going to come and we're going to have a discussion and then we're going to make a decision. The other elements of a card that I find to be really helpful is how long do you think you need for this item? So we need about 15 minutes for the discussion and to make a decision. You can also put any other information that is useful on the card. And if multiple people, you can see there's 2 names in the little colored circles there, they can be assigned, so more than one person could be presenting information. Now, as you're working through your month and getting ready for this meeting, you put all the cards in there on the people who say they want to have an agenda item, right? So when you get ready to do the meeting, if you don't have time for all of them, you can just move one of the cards to the next meeting. So we don't have time to do this GBAS topic, so we just moved it to June. So the card is still there, but we know that we're going to cover that next time. You can also put the cards in the order in which you want the items to go. And again, the planner is available for the whole team to see. It functions as a digital agenda. Following the meeting or even during the meeting, you can have a to-do bucket. And in the to-do bucket, any action items that come out of them, someone can quickly make the card, assign it to the right team, label it, put the checklist on it, put the due date on it, and you leave the meeting with your action item in a digital format where everyone can access it. I find this to be a great practice, especially really for all groups, but especially if you work with multiple areas across campus. It makes it really easy for people to understand what's going to happen in the meeting and for the meeting to be really organized, as well as putting some of our best meeting structures together. So that's a couple different ways to use Planner with 2 different kinds of meetings. And now we're going to transition, and Diane's going to take you through some tips and tricks on using Planner.
Hi, so I'm going to be talking about notifications. Notifications are a great feature in Microsoft Planner. You have different ways to be notified based upon your preferences. You can either choose to have an email sent to you when someone assigns you a task. So one email will be sent for each task assigned to you. And that's similar to the picture on the left. So this is an image of my email that I had a task assigned to me from my teammate, Kara. Tasks, you can also have tasks that are sent to you that are late, or you have a due date coming up. So that's the other example on the screen right now. I had 2 tasks that I was overdue because I did not have the time to finish them. So these tasks can be sent whether they're due in the last 7 days or the actual due date. You can get a notification. You can get tasks due in the next 7 days as well as your inbox. And these emails will be sent throughout the entire day and week. So it's not just work week, Monday through Friday. These will come in on the weekends as well. So after Planner has been added to the team, a post will be generated on this for a notification. That's what we're going to be talking about next. This is your feed. So say you're not a big fan of all those emails in your inbox because you already get too many emails. You can turn off that email notification and just get notified inside the team's activity feed. You can monitor the feed by looking at the bold settings or information that is in bold. It means that it's a new communication to you. Your assigned notifications will appear in your feed, and they contain these following details. You'll see your task title. You'll see who assigned the task to you, which plan the task belongs to. If it has a link inside the planner, then you'll be able to click on that link, and you'll also receive team notification no matter where your task is assigned from. So that could either be on if you use the Planner mobile app or the planner on the web or your SharePoint planner. So this might be a good option for you instead of getting notifications in your email if you're definitely working in your teams every day. And so you can just look in your feed to see what new assignments have been sent to you.
Yeah, that's definitely my preference.
All right, next thing we're going to talk about is mentions. So on the mentions item here, this is another email that I received inside my email box from Teams. And this is when, for example, Gwynn notified me, and I'm in the group of instructional designers. So she was bringing to our attention as a group that somebody has some information to share with you. So the at mention is kind of like a tap on your shoulder. It's a way to get someone's attention in the channel, conversation, or in a chat. So this particular example was a group of people. These come into your inbox looking like this, and you can click on that. Actual is a hyperlink there to go inside Teams to review the information, or you can click on that reply in Teams button there. Notifications can let you know when someone also mentions you in a conversation, so you can know ahead of time when you need to jump into Teams and learn about what information is being talked about. Gwen mentioned about channels, and channels are like subfolders inside Teams. So our team, HR Training and Organization Development, has these channels listed: General, Calendar Process, Instructional Designer, Keep Growing Page and Content, L&D Collaboration, and Remote Training. As you can see, the L&D Collaboration is bold, so that means there's some kind of information there for that particular group. But a team is a group of people gathered to get something done that is big in your organization. Sometimes it's your whole group, and sometimes it's not. So our team, so the teams are made up of channels, which are the conversations you have within your teammates. So each channel is dedicated to a specific topic, department, or project. For our example here, the instructional designers, I mentioned earlier that we were tagged in a message from Gwen. That is our channel for instructional designer. L&D has their own channel. And then as a whole, our entire group of 13 people, we all look at the general channel, calendar process, remote training information, and the keep growing page and content. So the opportunity to include a planner can be found under these channels. You can create a planner to each channel that you want to use, and you can have multiple planners inside the channels. And then, for example, today we're going to look at some planners that we have included. We included 2 of them for our channel that we're demonstrating. Was a stand-up meeting channel as well as a monthly group. Gwen mentioned about comments. So that's one of the features that I love the best about our cards inside planners. As you work through your plan, you might have questions for a person. You might be assigned a task with somebody else. So you can make a comment on this card here, and it will always stay on the card. After a comment is added, the task shows a symbol next to it. And this is always to give you something new that's, that you need to read. Comments are date stamped and historic information is captured. So what this means is comments can never be deleted. So if you write something in the notes section on this particular card, there's a note there, you can erase that, but you can never erase comments on a card. This is very helpful for when you're working on a task together in the group and you have a question for somebody, or maybe you completed your part of the checklist that Gwen mentioned, and you can write that here on the comment, so then the others are notified that the task is completed. It's also a great way for the managers to communicate with the group on a team to find out what the status is on a particular task. Next, we're going to talk about is our web version. So a web version is actually on the web on office.com, and this is an example of that. So you have two options to use Planner. You can either use it in on the web on office.com and find that app on the list, or you can download the Microsoft Teams, and then you can use Planner inside Teams. So this version just gives you a different view. When you do use the web version, as you can see on this particular example, my tasks are just tasks assigned to me. So earlier in our presentation, Gwen showed you her tasks that were assigned to her. I think it was via her Planner app inside Teams. And this is another view that you could use to look at Planner's tasks that are assigned to you. And this breaks it up in not started, in progress, and completed. And it pulls in all of your tasks assigned, no matter what plan they or what channel you have this Planner task assigned to you. This is called the Planner Hub. So some of our best strategies we recommend is to structure your buckets and tasks effectively. Buckets are for larger divisions within each project, and tasks are discrete units inside the buckets. Breaking projects down into buckets will make even larger projects more manageable. Gwen, you go ahead and take over the rest.
So a couple other things that are really helpful is to remember to be as specific as possible when describing your tasks. So employees need to know exactly what it is that they have to do. And if you're entering the task yourselves, adding more descriptive text makes it easier to remember what you have to do later. So more information versus less. Keep the planner updated. It's only good information if it's current. So you can't make decisions if the planner is out of date. So I recommend setting some sort of expectations with your team to say, hey, you know, update your planner every day, every week, or before the next meeting, whatever really works for your team. And the last thing that I think can be really helpful in using Planner is it's a great way to record that the work that has been done and the scope of the work that is happening. So this can be used for some of your performance conversations with UF Engaged. There is a great history of the work, as well as a great way to talk about how you might balance the work going forward. So we have other training available on Planner and Teams. So if you feel like you need additional resources, feel free to reach out to training. UFIT is also doing some resources for Teams, and there's tons of information on the web. So let us know if there's anything that we can do to help you further in doing effective virtual meetings. And I think we just want to say thank you for joining us for this.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for your attention. We hope we've taught you something.
Yeah, and we hope that you have an awesome day.